We'll record that. Tell me if my head gets in the way and then someone can come move it. I don't know if it does or not. All right, so I'm gonna throw a bowl, then I'm gonna slow down and throw a bowl, then I'm gonna trim a bowl, then I'm going to throw another bowl, okay? Just to kind of show you some of the things that we can do. So, cover that. Move those out of your way. So a couple of things that I do to modify this, because the faster I get to the end result, the better. So with 1.7 pounds of clay, I'm going to start my wheel, and I'm going to push down with one hand, and I'm going to start in my karate chop position. I'm not going to cone up. Now, you learn to cone up for lots of reasons. One, you're trying to figure out how to get that clay mixed. Two, when I go to 3 pounds, I'm going to cone up. So you need to know how. But I cone up by pushing in and down, in and down, in and down. And that clay will center itself. Okay, it's that simple. Plus 12 years of extra work. So I'm going to push this in. Now, you don't want to go too far because we're going to cut this. Plus, we're going to trim a foot into the bottom. And so we're going to take some of that clay out. Okay. So I'm not going to go too far. Now, I open that in. If I were going to do a cylinder, I would pull this towards me so it's flat on the bottom and flat on the side. But because I'm doing a bowl, I'm going to change that up. And I'm actually going to rotate right here to my pulling position, and I'm going to swoop over and up. Swoop over and lift up. So I combine the pulling out with a lifting up motion. And the reason I swoop is, if you can see in there, and I'm assuming you can, you start to get that roundness to it, okay? Because a bowl should have roundness. A dog dish is flat. If you end up getting dog dishes, that's great. But we're gonna try to make bowls. All right, so I'm going to squeeze at the bottom. And remember when I told you, you need to take the water out? You also need to learn to have your hands moving together, okay? Throwing a bowl like this is really bad because you're gonna pull towards you, you're gonna get it way out here and thin, and it's gonna flop. But if we have the clay between our fingers, I'm gonna push in at the bottom, squeezing like this, and I'm gonna squeeze over and up. Now, I always wanna make sure that my inside starts to curve and my outside stays at an angle or a triangle. You can stay up and down or at a triangle. As soon as it starts to round or flatten out, it's gonna flop. So when I pull this out, I'm gonna squeeze that clay, lift up just a little bit, pinching between my thumb and index finger, and just kind of guiding with this finger, supporting with my thumb. So do you see how the outside is a triangle? And the inside has that round bottom. Okay. Didn't talk about the tools. You need a sponge, you need a wood rib, and you need a metal rib. I'm gonna take this metal rib, and it bends, and it's gonna go down at the bottom. It's going to hit the bottom and bend, just like that. Can you see that? Okay. So it's going to come here, and I do it with my left hand. This is one of the only things I do one-handed because I want to be able to see what it's doing. So I stabilize my hand, I put it at the bottom, and I let that push out. I push towards the center, nice and slow, and then I start to push out. Now, I can do a couple of things. It's a great triangle right now, but I'm actually going to push this so that it starts to round. Because I'm compressing the clay, turning it round is great, but I'm not going to be pulling it anymore. Okay, if it was round and I start to pull it, it's gonna flop. But because I'm compressing it, I can make it round. So watch the bottom right here. I'm gonna push out just a little bit. And then lift up and decrease my pressure. You see how that rounded out that bottom just a little bit? My goal for making a bowl is that the inside and outside look about the same. So that the curve on the inside and the curve on the outside are about the same. And then we put a little foot on the bottom. That's my goal. It's not always the case, but it's something. Okay, I'm going to use the flat side of my metal rib, and I'm going to, right up close, I'll show you out here, I'm going to compress my clay. Do you see how dry my clay looks? Okay, you want your clay to look like this. It's compressed, it's drying out, and that's super important. All right, 2 more things, and then I'm going to cut this off. Now, I want my rim to be compressed, and I want it to be smooth and round. So I'm going to take a paper towel, like that, and I'm going to fold it in half. And the fold is going to point towards me. So I'm going to dunk it in water, and the fold is going to point towards me. The opening is pointed away, and I'm going to start my wheel. And I'm just going to slowly press that down. Remember, if I just like throw my hands on there, it's going to dent it. We want to just slowly compress that, clean that up. A round rim is stronger, it chips less, and it looks better. It holds glaze better. A flat or sharp rim will chip quicker, and it won't hold as much glaze. Reason why we use paper towels is if for some reason it gets into the pug bucket, it just becomes stink. Where some people use plastic bags, some people use like chamois, like leather, and they make really good rims as well. But we don't want to have any of that go through our kiln or our pugger and into the kiln. Okay, now it's compressed this way, so I ribbed it. I compressed my rim, I ribbed the outside. If I were to cut this right now on the bottom, it would have this suction cup on the bottom, and I'm not gonna get this off. So I have to make sure that it's dried and compressed, and I'm gonna use my wood rib. Now, do you remember when we used the wood? My wood knife on your cylinder, straight up and down, right? And I'm like, you gotta practice this because you gotta get used to this. Well, we're gonna change that and use a wood rib, and what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hold it and push here so I can push into my hand, and I'm gonna start, if you can see that, I start above the clay. So let's pretend my hand's the clay, and this is the little skirt or suction cup. I'm gonna come halfway in there and then push in. I'm not gonna start on the outside and push this in because that'll just curl my clay up. So I'm gonna start up here. That compresses down at the bottom, also pushes this out, and we will take that clay out. Okay. Now we're gonna cut this off. Super important. You follow these steps. Now I already have my boards out, but first thing you're gonna do, you're gonna go get a board. So for you get yourself a board like this, and most of them fit right there on your bucket. Okay, it's a great place to put them. Be careful. It'll hold itself there, but it'll also tip. So make sure it's on all 4 corners. Wash and dry your hands. Okay, the outside is dry. Our hands need to be dry. Then we're gonna take our wire tool, and we're gonna wrap it around our fingers, and we're gonna push down on the wheel head. The closer you can get to the center, the better. So you don't wanna be way out here. So wrap this up and push down. And as I do this, I'm gonna push down and pull towards me. You can push away. Either way, you've got to keep your wire tool tight. So if you're pushing away, pull your hands apart. If you're pulling towards you, pull your hands apart. So my elbows come this way. You don't have to spin the wheel. You can just come in like that. I like to spin the wheel. I can come in like that. Spinning the wheel is a little bit sketchy because your bowl will move a little bit. Okay, dry hands. These are my little guides down at the bottom. They're gonna pick up my middle finger and my thumb on both hands, and my index finger is just gonna support. We do not come and lift our bowls like this. If we do, you're going to taco them, okay? So I'm gonna come in here, I'm gonna twist, and I'm gonna just pick up with my right hand, and that bowl, because it's compressed and dried, should move with very little like bending. Okay, just set that there. If you pick one up and it bends like so, you can set it down, not real violent, just a little violent, and then push that out just a little bit, and it'll be fine. Okay, let's do that again. Take a chunk of clay, pat it into a ball. 1.5 to 1.8-ish pounds makes a good bowl. Now, before we move on, let's look at some bowls I threw yesterday. So, yeah. Okay, there's 3 ways you can leave these bowls. So this is how I normally leave mine. I scrape that in pretty far, and I'm gonna trim that in a second. And that's gonna trim so it looks like that, okay? The second is you leave a little bit extra on there, okay? I don't prefer that. It's still, if you look at it, square. It's not flared out. So we've still trimmed it up. There's just a little extra. A lot of yours will look like that. Okay, not a big deal, we can trim that up. The third is like this, where there's nothing cut in, and there's extra clay at the bottom. Again, I think a lot of yours will look like that, at least the first few, okay? All of these are not a problem. The difference is, I throw my bowls, so I have to trim them very little, where you're just gonna be hoping for the best, right? So, however they come out, we'll be okay. I'm actually gonna show you a different way of throwing a bowl in a minute that's this way. So, I'll show you that. All right, I'll set these aside because I don't want them to dry out too much. And we're gonna start this. Oh, and I didn't even throw this on this board like I said I would. You throw it on your board like that. My favorite thing to do is let them sit out as long as I can. So for you, it would be an hour. On this one, then your rim will start to set up, and then you can put a bag on it. I'll show you how to put a bag on them in a minute. Okay, going to start our wheel, add some water, push down. If this isn't working for you, go right back to coning. There's nothing wrong with coning your clay. Make sure it is as centered as possible. If you're pulling on clay coming out and it's not centered, it's gonna wobble pretty fiercely. So spend the extra time on the centering and then work from there. So I'm gonna open this. Slow my wheel down. Okay, check my bottom. If you need to, stop your wheel, put a needle tool in there. That's about 3/4 of an inch thick. So we're gonna go a little bit lower. About a 1/2 inch is good for the way I like to trim my bowls, because I can cut a deep foot in. And again, a foot is that bottom. So the foot comes here, but also I can trim on the inside. Not all potters trim that way, but some do. Okay, I'm gonna swoop over. So I'm gonna swoop over to my thumb. As I swoop, I'm creating the bowl shape, and I'm gonna lift up. So pull over about right there and start to swoop up. Get to the top and just hang out there for a minute. Take the water out. If you have a little bump in the bottom, you can kind of press that down. Okay, sides are straight up and down or slightly tilted, but not round. Inside has a nice curve to it. The inside is what I'm mostly worried about. Okay, and I'm going to stop for a second. I want you to remember this shape right here, okay? See all that clay? Lots of it? Okay, okay. I'm going to push at the bottom, and I'm going to pinch and lift this up. You're the first class to get the TV. I've never broadcast to the TV before. So hopefully it's working. So, okay, so triangle shape, right? It's at an angle. Inside has that curve, and I'm going to compress that with my metal rib. Now, for some of you, this may take 3 or 4 pulls, maybe 4 or 5 pulls. You can go halfway, halfway, halfway kind of thing. I'm a big fan of getting there as soon as possible. And there's even some things that I'm doing right now that when I'm throwing a lot, I will combine them. So I'll open and I'll pull up and out all in one thing, down, over, and up. All one motion, or whoa, don't want to go too fast. Centrifugal force is real. Okay, right here I'm looking for nice and dry. I'm looking for a decent curve. I don't want to over push it, because if I over push it, it's going to create a shelf, and then gravity is going to drop it. So we want to keep this fairly angular. We could push it out a little bit more, but we're going to use the trimming tools to do that. So I'm going to do a quick trim today. When we get a couple days into our bowl bottles and vase sets, I'll do another trimming demo for you. Okay. All right, so I ribbed the outside. I'm going to compress my rim. It's not super important, but if you look at it, there's a little bit of chunk on there. I'm going to press this down. Just kind of hold it there, let it run through. If your rim's a little wobbly, you can still kind of let that run through. Just don't press too hard. I'm going to clean up the bottom. 2 hands, nice and slow. Always have your wheel running. I know a lot of you would stick your tool in there and then turn the wheel on, and then you kind of jerk that clay. Always have your wheel running. Clean up here. Dry your hands, get a board. Wear khakis. And cut this off. So I'm going to push down here. I start my wheel just a nice slow and pull right towards me.
Why do you spin the wheel while you do it?
Because you actually cut less. So when I'm cutting without spinning the wheel, I have to cut through everything. I know I cut through everything both times, don't worry. When it's spinning, by the time I'm to the middle, I've cut through everything. So the last part is just nothing. One thing some people will do, and some of you will do this, you're going to pull towards you and you're going to lift up, and you're going to cut through the bottom and cut through the side. So make sure you pull straight towards you and push down into the wheel head. When you cut this off, make sure you have your board right there, because if you cut this, then go over and get your board and then come back, maybe talk to your friends, whatever, it might sit back down. So I'm going to twist this, and that'll pop right up like so. And I set that there. It shouldn't take too much. Now, the thicker your bottom is, the harder it is to pull this off. The wetter your clay is, the harder it is to pull this off. If you're running through this and not getting it, just call me over. We'll work you through it. It's a pretty interesting concept. But pat of clay. One thing I didn't tell you, when I'm throwing, I don't remove my pad of clay. I'll just throw another chunk of clay on there. Okay? You don't have to clean it. You can though. Just come in here and clean that up. Okay, let's trim something so you can see kind of the end result. Then I will throw 2 more bowls. I was going to grab that by the rim, that would have been bad. So, similar, not the same, but we're going to trim these up so it's cleaned up like that. So, the theory behind trimming, the quick theory, is if my bowl is round, I'm going to set it in the middle of my circles and they should line up. So I'm going to turn that on. And if you see a wobble, it's because it's not centered. Now, if there was a laser pointing down to my wheel, it would be pointing right there in the middle, okay? So if I come in here and draw a line, that circle is centered, but my clay is not. It's a little bit thinner between here and there and thicker between here and there, which means I've got to move it. So I've got to equalize that clay. So I'm going to come in right here and just gently push that direction. Now I could come in and add new circles. Do you see how the circles, there's a thickness and line difference? That new circle is centered. But I'm not going to. I'm going to hold my thumb down here. I'm going to get rid of that chunk of clay. And if I hold steady and push it to where it's touching, and then slow my wheel down, it's touching right there. For some of you, you might not be able to see that, so I'm going to put little markings right there. And that'll help me distinguish where, yep, still hitting on one. So it comes over, and I'm going to push away. I don't just push, I actually support with my middle fingers and push towards them. So I kind of scoot them this way. And then I do it again, and I check. I'm not doing it right here because when I pull on my clay with my wire tool, sometimes you pull extra clay over so it's lopsided. So I do it right down below, and I also don't do it on my rim because I'm not going to trim my rim. So it's hitting on 2. So I actually push just a little too far. And then there comes a point where you go, that is probably good enough. All right, I'm going to use this clay. So I'm going to create 3 little lugs. Sometimes I call these clay turds. Okay, and I'm going to lock this down. So I put my hand on top, put my little lug there, and I push straight down and then move in. Now, some things we didn't talk about. Your clay has to be leather hard. If I go to trim this bowl, it's just going to flop everywhere. Second thing is we need to measure the bottom. When I do my trimming demo, after, let's see, some of you will start on Thursday, so Thursday, Monday, probably Wednesday of next week, we'll do a trimming demo. We'll talk about how you can measure how thick your bottom is. Okay, there's 3 tools I use for trimming. Well, 2 tools. This is one tool, except they're broken on the other side. So a square and a round ribbon tool and a loop tool. And I'm going to come in, once this is locked in, I'm going to hold right here, always stable. I'm just going to slowly push that in. So I'm creating my foot ring right there. And as I'm doing that, I'm being mindful of how far out it is and how much clay it is. If your bowl has a really good round inside to it, there's going to be a lot of clay there. If it is really flat, there's going to be very little clay there because the outside and the inside are going to match. Okay, so the inside goes like this, then there's going to be all this clay out there. But if your outside comes out like this, it's going to be thinner. Does that kind of make sense? If it doesn't, don't worry about it. A nice leather hard. Holding it like a paintbrush, like if you're doing big brush strokes, not like a pencil. Now, I created this little shelf, so I'm just going to flip my tool and I'm going to push down, let that hit, and then I'm going to round over. And all I'm doing is creating the inside curve on the outside or something close to it. My goal when, if I were to break my bowls, that it would be the same thickness from the top all the way through the clay except for where the foot ring is. That's my goal. So anytime a bowl breaks in my house, I ask my family to save them so I can look and see how it looked, because it's interesting to me.
So you don't get mad when your kids break bowls?
Sometimes I do, but I don't think they do it on purpose. Okay, so I've trimmed the outside. The faster you move, the more lines you get. Now, those lines are cool once it's trimmed, but you want to move slow to get it trimmed, or have your wheel going faster in this case. Basically, you want more rotations through the tool. Now we're going to do up here. Now I'm going to hold this like a pencil, and I'm going to push my corner. Now a theory on trimming, my theory on trimming, is if I'm starting into something that's flat, I'm going to use the corner of my tool. If I'm starting into something that has a corner, I'm going to use the flat part of my tool. So if I'm cleaning up here, I'm going to use the flat side. If I'm up here, I'm going to use my corner. Again, we'll cover this again. Going to create that little canal, and I'm just going to slowly pull this over. And I'm just trying to thin out my clay. I'm trying to lighten up my bowl and give it a nice foot ring. A foot ring looks nice, but it also, if your clay is flat on the bottom, it might warp, where if I have the foot ring, if there's a little warp, it'll disperse it throughout. But if there's a warp all the way through, your bowl will rock. Just going to come in there with the corner of my tool and just slowly push over. Oh, that's a little thin. I'll show you. See, a little thin. So that's going to happen, and it's okay. If you cry while it's spinning, it'll actually regenerate. Anyways, we're going to finish this up. I'm going to smooth that out. The thing that's going to touch your table is this foot ring, and so when I am done trimming, I'll actually take my fingers and really compress that. Makes it nice and smooth so that when you set it on your table, it's nice and smooth. Okay, if you wanted to, you could come in here and add some textures, all that fun stuff. Pull that off. That will be your finished bowl. But do you remember where that started? Okay. I should break it like this.
should have caught it.
Yeah. Why didn't you catch it?
Sorry.
Okay, let's do 2 more bowls.
You should throw it away like you threw away your plate.
Did you throw your plate away?
Yeah.
Was I there?
You were the one that did it.
Oh. Okay, let's throw another bowl. And then, actually, we're going to throw 3 more. So, some things I want you to remember as we do this. You're new at this, and I'm old. I'm going to tell you a story on the way to the band thing the other day.
Oh yes, did you see we got first in the progression? Yes, I'm so
I
happy.
did see that.
Yeah, we did so good. Anyway, keep
If
going.
you guys want to see something cool, if you've never seen marching band do their full show tomorrow night, Wednesday out on the field, right? You should go watch. It's cool. Your show is really good.
It's a cool show.
I've been to a lot of shows. I was in marching band in high school. My kids did marching band, and yeah, your show looks really good.
Did you see when the murals fell down
I didn't.
during the show? One of the mirrors got caught in it, so and then tipped over, but we got it.
Okay, so you're brand new at this, right? And we're going to do the best we can. So, remember what my end bowl looks like,
Yes.
okay?
Wait.
Not trimmed.
Yes, I was like.
The trimmed one's on the ground somewhere. But the end bowl looks like this. Is everyone watching? So, if you can't get there, let's say you spend the first day or two and you're getting there, but every time you maybe pull it out too far and it flops, or you're kind of messing it up, I want you to look at this right here. Okay. Are both bowls in the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Are they both bowls?
Yes.
Okay, which one's thicker at the bottom?
Yes.
This one is. Okay? But here's my thing for you. If you're making bowls and you're struggling, you're getting it for the most part, and you're struggling after you're starting to pull it up the second time and it's flopping, let's sit with this, okay? Because this is a bowl. It's not going to be this bowl, but it'll be close in size. Okay? Is that a bowl?
Yes. Sure.
It's a cup.
Yes.
Is this a bowl?
Yes.
They're both bowls. Okay?
Wait, does it mean it cups a bowl?
This is I want 1 scoop of ice cream bowl. I want some cottage cheese or some yogurt.
God, that's nasty.
Salsa, guacamole, right? Ring bowl. You can throw your rings in there. All kinds of crazy stuff like that. So, you would come in here and you would still follow the same steps. You would ribbit.
You a frog? No, you should be a frog for Halloween next year.
I was a frog this year for Halloween.
Your pictures.
Yeah, I need proof of this.
Rib the outside. Do you see how straight that outside is? Hey, there's a lot of clay there. But if you're struggling, this is a good compromise. I'm going to hit my rim. And then I'm going to clean up my bottom. I still like to use this, although my cylinder or my bowl is pretty straight up and down. The difference between this and a cylinder, this has a little bit of a roundness to it. And I'm just going to hold this in. Clean that up. however far you feel comfortable doing it. The more you take off now, the less you have to trim. So the lighter your bowl.
What if you want a heavy bowl?
You don't,
Why not?
because I said so. You want to strive for perfection. Heavy bowls are good for things like
Ice cream.
nothing.
What if I want to grind up some bricks and eat that?
Okay, then you would need a heavier bowl. Like,
What if you're making wine?
all right, do you see how dry my clay looks?
Yes.
You need to compress, take out the water. I'm going to turn this, pull that out. Okay, it's a thick guy, but we can trim that up. Now, if I sat these out, these two pieces like that, this one will be leather hard in probably 45 minutes to 2 hours. This one, that bottom, it's gonna take a lot longer. So something I do on my bowls is when this gets leather hard, and it's not yet, I leave them out and then I will flip them over onto my piece. Now, for those of you, you're gonna start on Thursday. You'll come back Monday, they probably won't be ready to trim. They might be. One of the joys of being in here is I can check my stuff all the time. I threw these bowls after school, I let them sit out, I covered them, I came in this morning, I flipped them, I came in this morning and I just opened them up to make sure that they were dry so I could trim them, right? So I can do that. You can do that as well in the sense of you could come in on Friday, but you've got to bag them up. So we'll bag them up in a minute. All right, let's move on. Thick guy, but still a bowl, correct? Even if you turned it in just like that, which I don't recommend, but even if you did, that's still a bowl. And you'd probably be happy to eat not cottage cheese out of it. And since I'm the only one that eats cottage cheese at my house, I just eat it out of the container, so. Love cottage cheese.
Keep a little spoon with it in the fridge.
No, I get a new spoon.
That's good.
Okay. Let's throw another bowl. So it's a little chunky at the bottom, and I'll just slowly pull that off. Some of this clay needs to be worked a bunch, so you can wedge on the wheel. Wedge it out there, but if the more you cone it up and down, the more you wedge it. I'm gonna open this. Now, let's say you struggled, and as you are pulling your clay out and up, you just have a hard time controlling it. It's a new movement, and you're pulling out and up, and every time it flops. And it's because you're pulling it too far at the bottom, or pulling the top way too far out for any of the support underneath. These are things that you can come and talk to me about, but you know how to pull a cylinder. So we're gonna open that and lift that straight up like that. So let's pretend that your cylinder looks like this. Okay, but every time you're pulling out, it's creating some problems. Flopping, wobbling. So you're gonna do this. You're gonna come in here, you're gonna compress your rim because we don't want it to crack. You're gonna come in here and you're going to pull just a little bit of this clay off. Okay, we still have a cylinder, right? So most of you did pretty well at doing this. And then I'm gonna do this. You can make your rim thinner if you want. I'm gonna take my wood rib, I'm gonna put it at the bottom. So The round side is gonna stick at the bottom, and I'm gonna push out just a little bit, then I'm gonna lean, and then I'm gonna lift. So I'm gonna come in here, push out just a little bit. I don't want it to go too far. I'm gonna lean this over. And as I start to do that, I'm gonna lift just a little bit. Nice and slow. This is not my preferred way of making a bowl, but it certainly can make a bowl. I can throw them faster the way I showed you the first couple of times. Okay, the outside is a triangle, inside is shaped like a bowl. You could push this further if you want, so let's try it. Let's push it further. Push that out just a little bit. And lift up. By compressing the clay, it will stay pretty well formed. All right, we're gonna clean up our rim. So, different ways of making bowls. All of them are good. Hit that like so. One of the problems, or one of the differences is with recycled clay, sometimes when we push out our clay instead of pull our clay, we get more superficial or surface cracks on our clay because it's stretching it instead of moving it. When you trim, you'll get rid of some of those. Not a big deal. It's not a big deal at all, really, but it's not. They're not gonna crack your pieces. All right. What was I gonna do next? Clean up there. I'm gonna cut that off. See how dry my bowl is? Anyone want to guess why I keep asking you that? Because you need to make sure your bowl is dry. Because if it's wet and you grab this and your hands are wet and you grab this, you're just going to slip. And it's going to be a pain. I would never. Okay, lift that up. Go. You see how there's some little, can you see that? Those little cracks.
You're not in there. There you go. Oh, you're right there. There you go.
Ideally, I'd be able to project to the screen too, so I could see what I was doing, but I don't live in an ideal world. I got word today that we may or may not be getting our kilns fixed for another week. So,
Wait, what?
I know. It's okay. Whatever. They're busy. I get it. Right.
We're busy too.
Yeah. Jeez.
I am not. We'll
What
get
if
there.
you run out of shelf space?
We'll just start breaking stuff.
Stuff.
Okay, yours.
Okay.
One more bowl. Just thinking if there was a different way of doing this. No. I don't need to throw one more bowl. Let's do a cylinder. 1.5 pounds into 23. Okay, let's talk about this real quick. So, and then I will throw a couple of vases. So I'm actually going to throw a little vase right now. So I'm going to pull this into a cylinder. What was that? No more bowls for now. This is what your time frame should look like. Let's say you're the first on the wheel, so you're going to start Thursday. So you go Thursday, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Tuesday, Thursday, Monday. Right? That's 5 days. Sounds right to me. Tuesday, so Thursday, 3 days. So that's 4, 5, 6, yeah, and then Monday. So Thursday is going to be an intro day. If you get a bowl or something made, great. If you don't, that's going to be okay. Monday, you need to get something. Wednesday, you should try to start trimming. And for shelf space and just for learning, I find that once you've trimmed a couple, you'll actually throw better. So, but also on shelf space, you're not gonna have room for 10 bowls. I bet. I'm gonna lift this up. So, Thursday, let's say you make 1 or 2, save 1 or 2, that's up to you. Monday, you make 1 or 2, save 1 or 2. Lift this up. Now, I always want to tip in, even if I'm gonna bring my rim out. That's spinning, clean that up. So Thursday, Monday, Wednesday you trim, throw 1 or 2. So you've thrown 6, maybe. Maybe a couple of them haven't made it, so you've saved 4. Friday, you trim 1 or 2. You throw 1 or 2. Again, these are general numbers, so you're at saving 6, thrown 8. Where are we at now? Tuesday, you throw a couple, you trim a couple. So by the end, so that next Monday, right before Thanksgiving break, you should have thrown or attempted to throw between 8 and 12 pieces. You should have saved between 6 and 8 pieces, right in there. And you're going to trim them. You're going to mess up on some of the trimming or not. And then you're going to pick your favorite 3 or 4 bowls and call it a set. Okay?
I can't keep 6 or 8.
No. We don't have, I mean, as of right now, we have no kiln room. But then we don't have enough kiln room to fire everybody's 8 pieces. Okay, I'm going to trim off the bottom there. If you're having a hard time getting the clay off the bottom, trim it, then come back down one more time and give it a quick pull. And by a quick pull, I mean my outside hand pushes underneath and lifts up. When we're making a bowl, we're going the opposite way. Okay, so a vase is where the opening and the body have similar widths. Okay, that's my definition of a vase. So this is a vase. If I want to shape this, I'm going to come in here, add a little water on the inside, and I'm going to push out and support my outside hand. And anytime you want the clay to move out or in, if it's going out, my inside hand is below. If it's going in, my outside hand is below. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to push out and lift that up. So my outside hand is guiding. I'm going to equalize them sort of straight across from each other, and now my inside hand is above my outside hand. And I can create a nice little vase shape. Do you see how slow I was moving? A lot of you are going to want to do this and be like, get there. And you got to slow down. Rule on ribbing. I don't rib the inside because I use my sponge, but if your clay is round, you use the flat side. And if your clay is flat, you use the round side. Okay? I'll show you next time I throw a cylinder why I do that. So I'm going to come down here at the bottom. I'm going to wrap that around and bend it. And just slowly run that. Now, if it's bent in, we use the round side. Something I want to clarify, I'm doing all this out here so you can kind of see. Do it right here, right at 5:30. Okay, see how dry my clay looks? Really important. Going to hit my rim. Throw these away when you're done. They're good for about, I don't know, 10 pieces maybe. So one day, I mean, you and your friend can share whatever, but one day's worth of throwing. And clean up the bottom there. If yours is a little thicker, it's okay. Vases trim like bowls. So we'd flip it over and trim it. Bottles don't trim like bowls. And we'll show you that in a second. Try that, trim it. sorry, dry that, cut that, pull that off. Down at the bottom and lift. That's a little thin, so I'm getting some finger marks. It's okay. And we set that there. And you got yourself a little vase. Okay, let's do that a couple of times. But let me actually ask, is anyone interested in throwing vases? Are we, yeah, maybe? Okay, we'll do a couple. Usually with vases, I mean, that's a perfectly fine small vase. You could also turn that into a mug. Like put a little handle on it, right? Be kind of cute. Usually vases I start with about 3 pounds because you want something bigger. A bigger thing could be a pitcher. I'm going to push down on that. Push in, push down. So you could put a handle on a vase, on a pitcher, or onto a vase and turn it into a pitcher. You don't have to. All right, we're going to open this. Make sure you're not going too far down. You still need to have room to cut. I'm going to pull this towards my thumb because I want this straight up and down. As it starts to go, I'm going to squeeze my rim together just a little bit. But I'm looking for a straight up and down, inside and outside. Inside, I'm going to clean that out. I'm not too worried about that little bump at the bottom. If you are, press down on it, move it. You can get rid of some of that.
Could you make a bowl that looks like that?
Could you?
Yes.
Yes. It's more of like a dog dish. But there's plenty of, you could round it out, but there's plenty of things. Like I make these baking dishes that are flat bottomed and they're glazed, and you take them and you take some eggs and you crack your eggs, you maybe whip them up, put them in there, throw some bacon in there or some ham, throw some cheese on top, stick them in the oven. And well, first you spray them with a little Pam or butter or whatever. And so the flat bottom will bake really well, and you can bake them. Perfectly acceptable.
So these are oven proof.
Yeah, you can put them in the oven.
Can you burn clay?
So thermal shock is real. So if you put them on the stove with either an electric coil or a flame, the bottom will crack because the top and the bottom are fighting in temperature, so thermal shock. But if you put the whole thing into an oven, it's surrounded 100% by heat, and so it won't crack. But I wouldn't pull it out of my freezer and put it in my oven.
What? This be stupid.
Well, you do that with Pyrex, so glass pans. So I'm gonna reach down to the bottom, grab this clay.
Oh my goodness, this makes this kitchen out of clay. Can you burn clay?
Um, no, but there are some clays that you can melt. So if you get them too hot, they'll actually slump.
Could you melt it into a puddle?
Yeah. So we had a kiln at the senior center in Springville that overheated, and all the clay that was in there got so hot it melted down and ruined the whole kiln. Like all the brick was ruined. And okay, this is what I mean by ribbing flat versus round. So if I come in with a flat piece here, I can do it, but I'm gonna probably hit my corners. So I'm gonna come in with my round end to rib this so that it's just smoothly moving over the clay. And anytime I go to shape a vase, I rib it first. I've just pulled it up, I've stretched out the clay. I want to rib that so that it will move without cracking. Okay, I'm gonna come down here, I'm gonna start to lift. Now, a lot of beginners, you'll push way out and you get this little frumpy, fat-bottomed vase. So I'm going to start to come at an angle and lift up. My outside hand is just supporting, and then I'm going to come back in. So, a couple things I didn't cover. Get it as tall as you think you want it, and as wide as you want the neck to be. So I don't have to do too much to the neck. And then a little bit of shape goes a long way. I'm going to use my flat side to rib my round side, right? That's the theory. Okay, clean up the bottom. Now, as you're doing this, your pulls are going to take longer. I'm getting here in 2 pulls what's going to take you 4 or 5 or 10, right? And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. Try to get there as quick as possible, but if you're getting flopping or you're pulling too much clay up and you're getting like a really thick top and a thin bottom, slow your pressure down and you're pulling down. So, if I wanted to, I could come in here. I'm going to hold on the outside. I'm just going to turn this into a little pitcher. All right, it doesn't take a whole lot.
I think so.
And then we'll add a handle there, right?
Yeah.
Be super cute.
Yeah.
Just going to come in here and clean that up. And mostly I'm just telling you things because you can push these any direction you want. They're yours. They're going home with you. Okay, I'm going to cut this off. I think I might throw another bowl here in a second before I do a big piece, a bigger piece.
Big model. Is that a pair of pants you're using?
There's some sweatpants, yeah. I meant to grab another, pull that off.
So give your kids just like give you a pair of sweatpants for your birthday or something. Like, awesome, a new towel.
A new towel. No, I'll just take towels. All right, what's next?
Careful.
23.
A couple of things for you. This is 3 pounds of clay, roughly. On your bowl sets, bottle sets, vase sets, you're going to save 3 or 4. Your favorite. Some things you can think about. Some people want to do nesting sets, so small, medium, and large. Some of you might want them to be exact. I'm not going to tell you they have to be exact. I'm not even going to tell you you have to glaze them the same. That's usually what ties a set together, is the glaze, but it doesn't have to. I'm not going to tell you you have to do a texture, although you probably should. They're kind of fun to do. So this is going to be a bowl. It's going to be a bigger bowl. And again, if you start with 3 pounds of clay and this is all you can get, you should have started with less clay, right?
What if that's what you want?
You don't.
Just tell me what I want and don't want.
In a sense, yeah.
If you get the whole bowl of the base and pour off.
I think that sounds like a great idea. Who said that? Yeah. Yes, you could. So that's another thing. I'm not going to be like, oh, you only saved 2 bowls, you missed points. turn in 3 things, 4 things that you like, and then account for those 7 days and say, I threw 8 bowls and 4 vases, and I trimmed them up, and I'm turning in 2 bowls and a vase as my final project. I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I like that idea. Okay, I'm going to, your hand up?
No.
Good, because I was going to shoot you down anyways.
Oh, okay. Do you and Andrews get along, and Marvin?
Yeah, we do actually.
I was like, y'all like making fun of me.
Just you? No, we like making fun of everybody, but especially you. Oh boy,
That's what it feels like.
well,
I know
I'm-
you do eat lunch with the English teachers,
I do.
so that makes sense.
Yes, because that's where I get my smarts from. Okay, so a bowl. Some things you can do to a bowl if you want, and this is completely up to you. You could come in here and be like,
That's like that's a good size cereal bowl.
Yeah.
You broke it.
It's an X snack. Oh wait, never mind. You just ruined the X. Have you ever done spikes on something? Like not waves, like spikes.
yeah, but spikes are fragile and
Dangerous.
I guess. So anyways, my point with this one is you can manipulate your stuff as well, right? If you see something online and you're like, I want to do that, okay, we can come up with a way to have you do that. Now, bigger bowls are harder to get off, and so be extra careful if you do a bigger bowl. All right, let's do a bottle. We haven't done one of those yet. So bottles are vases, no, so bottles are cylinders that have a small opening. We still broadcasting? Good. To the TV. Okay, if you're gonna make a bottle, you need to keep your shape pointed inward, and you need to keep it fairly thick, 3/8 of an inch maybe, so that there's play as you push on it to hold itself. If it's really thin and you push on it, it's gonna collapse. So I'm gonna pull this out. I'm gonna lift this up. Okay, if you're making a bottle and you can't reach down to the bottom, you're just gonna have to kind of push that out. There are some sticks that have sponges or could have sponges on them. They're probably in one of the drawers. Okay, I'm gonna lift this up. And keep that moving in. Now a bottle can have a wide base, it can have a round bottom. The definition of a bottle, though, that this would be a vase, definition would be that the opening is significantly smaller than the body. Okay? And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to rib this. Rib it here. Lift that. And then I'm going to add just a little bit of shape, not much, because I'm going to bring the top in. I don't need a whole lot of shape here.
You should do wash.
I should what?
You should wash.
Just a little bit of shape. Nice and slow. Okay, before I start to close this off, I need to make sure all the water's out of the bottom. So take that out. I'm going to rib this. Anytime we stretch clay, we want to make sure that it's compact. All right, now to push this in, there's a couple of ways I can do this. I can grab it with a big C in my left hand and push it with my little C. Okay, I can do 2 little C's, and I can also 2 big C's. So I'm actually going to start by doing 2 big C's. So I'm going to start down here. This is called collaring. And lift that up. One of the problems with collaring is it almost always makes a slightly lopsided rim, but we'll fix that. Now I'm gonna go big C, little c. Now I'm gonna pay attention. If I push this in so it becomes a flat shoulder, my top is gonna drop. So I'm gonna push in and lift up. Okay, we're starting to get a bottle shape. And then we're going to push in and lift up some more. Bottle shape. I'm going to rib this. Sometimes when we rib it, it takes the extra slip off and it gives us our actual form and shape. Okay, that's not bad. I'm gonna get that wet. I like bottles. They're hard to make. They take a lot of practice and a lot of patience. And they're kind of useless. Like, you're not going to put anything in here.
You can put a single flower.
You could. You could.
And that one.
He drops the needle to it.
Oh, that is so sad. Do you just cut off the top or
If what?
like the top because it's lopsided?
You could, or you could leave it. But I'm going to come and cut it off. Like so. So we got a nice bottle shape. What time do we get out of class? Okay. Clean that up. You guys want to see some magic?
Yes.
And now it's full.
That's not the magic part. You ready?
It's the water fountain.
Magic.
I like it better as a water fountain.
So if we accidentally do that, you can just blow it back up.
You can. Do it too many times, it'll compress. We're gonna leave it like that. That'll be great.
It's a water fountain.
Cut that off. All right, I have enough time to do one more thing. What do you want to see? Bowl, bottle, vase. What?
Yes.
Another bottle?
Another magic trick.
All of them
Yeah.
in one.
It's like one of those bowls that has like a straw.
Sometimes you lift it up and you go, oh, I could have done better.
And then you just
Okay, you're gonna have to be quiet though. This is a lot of clay. So, if you're doing a lot, center the top part and then center the bottom part. Cone that sucker up. And bring it down. wobbly.
Make this here.
Ooh, lots of something going on there. Keep it a little thicker. The bigger you go, the more clay you have to have supporting it. There's so many other things you can do with clay. There's a lot of people who can't throw big or have a hard time, but they can throw, say, this much clay, but they want a piece that's twice as big. And I'm not going to do this today, but they would get this to a point, get another to a point, and then connect them and make them. That's actually what that big piece up there is. It was 3 pieces thrown together. So you throw one piece, you throw another, you put them together, throw another. Although I do know people who can throw 50 pounds of clay in one go.
Are they just like super muscular?
Yeah, usually.
Is it the rock?
The rock? Yeah, except for he has like stubby arms.
Can you do 50 pounds?
Can I throw 50 pounds? No,
Can you try?
I don't want to.
You should do the magic trick.
I'll tell you what, who said that? If you successfully, whoever said that, successfully throw 25 pounds, I'll throw 50.
Let's see what.
I mean, not right now. We got only a few minutes till lunch.
Branching strengths too, right?
Maybe. Gonna push that out. I'm using my rib
Alright, let's all do it.
because that helps me compress that as I move outward.
50 pounds. 50 pounds.
Push that in. I'm gonna pull this up.
Nope, it's 30. What? 40, oh, 45? That'd be 60.
You guys are gonna team throw?
Yeah.
Please let me know so I can record it. For when you succeed.
We got 60 pounds.
Can you do the magic trick with the big ones?
You can, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna seal that off. Sometimes I'll seal them off and then I'll cut it open in a second. Great thing about sealing it off, there's now air contained in there, so I can come in here and really push on my shape. Because the air is pushing back. So right now I have an earth, water, and air bender.
What about fire?
Fires later.
Okay.
So if you wanted, you could close something like this off. And I wouldn't do it right this second. But you could come in and cut this and create a jar. Lots of cool things to do. We'll see you on Thursday. Be ready to start. Have your ideas ready for your hand-built projects. If you don't, you will be shamed.
Shamed. Shamed. Thank you.
See ya.